Hi, and welcome to another Scientology Outside of the Church podcast brought to you by ao-gp.org and our social media and college platform, the College of Independent Scientology.com, our online course room, and much more. I'm here with Quentin Stroud and Arthur Mudakis. This is season 11, episode 8, and this one is going to be entitled Independent Scientology. What in the hell are they talking about?
Yes, I love it.
Because
Yes,
we have so much terminology, nomenclature, all of these concepts that you have to understand. You might as well be reading a manual to a high-end stereo system with a bunch of misunderstood words and everything in it, because there's so much to know and to learn just to have basic understanding of what it is that we talk about in these podcasts. So we thought we would do one and break things down as simply as possible. I tend to talk about things from a highly technical viewpoint because I am a technician, an auditor, and a case supervisor in independent Scientology. And my viewpoint in reality is based off of these concepts that I use every day. And sometimes I fail to cut the gradient down in our podcasts for people. And we move so quickly, the three of us, the two of us, whoever's doing the podcast, that we assume, and this is something that happens in every walk of life, that you assume that people know what it is that you're talking about. But when it's a podcast and it's been put out there on some podcast platform or on YouTube or whatever, and somebody runs across this and goes, this is just, it's like Martian to them. So we wanted to do a podcast given that angle of attack and everything like that. So I'm going to take a little bit of a back seat, and I'm going to filter myself and keep it very simple. Quentin and Arthur are probably a little bit better attuned to that sort of a thing than I am. So,
Well,
no,
I'm from Alabama, and so they say talk plain to me. You know,
right.
talk. And so, but I do want to start with this, Arthur, if you don't mind. I want to start with this LRH reference from September 18, 1967 on complexity and confronting. So, for those of you who are listening, I want you to really get this. He says, in some researches I've been doing recently in the field of study, I have found what appears to be the basic law of complexity. It is the degree of complexity is proportional to the degree of non-confront. Reversing this, the degree of simplicity is proportional to the degree of confront. And the basis of aberration is a non-confront. So now that gets a little, because people don't talk like that, but I want to give it to you plainly. The degree of complexity is proportional to the degree of non-confront. So to the degree that you are feeling like something is complex, I don't understand what's going on, whatever, that means there's a degree that you're not confronting it,
Okay, we
right? You're
probably
not
need to
really
clear.
confronting the material.
Right, we
Mhm.
probably need to clear up to undercut what is confronting. Why is
Oh,
that an important component for people new to the subject, or maybe old and they don't understand what confronting is and why it is important?
yes. So
Isn't
I under
confronting getting
go
mad
ahead.
at everyone?
No. Not confronting. I don't want to be confrontational. People say confrontational. No. Confront is being able to face something without flinching. That's what confront is. To be able to approach something or someone, to face something without flinching. And so the degree of complexity is proportional to the degree of non-confront. What can't I face? Why can't I look at this material? Why does my dyslexia kick in when I read words? Whatever, right? Like why does stuff happen to me? Because that for whatever reason, if there is a back off on confront to be able to face something without flinching, without backing away from it, then I can make it more simple for myself. If I can really confront something, I can handle it. If I can really confront this material, talk about the study of Scientology, if I can really confront it, I can actually handle it. I can have it. I can enjoy it. I can celebrate it. I can absorb it. But it says the degree of simplicity is proportional to the degree of confront. So the more we're able to confront something, that's anything. Your car breaks down, your relationship going wonky, something's going on with your finances, whatever. The degree that you can confront that to face it without flinching, it becomes a lot more simple. Isn't that something? I just want to start off with that
That's
reference as we
yeah.
talk about what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, we've talked about this. We've talked about this in other podcasts, and it's one of my
Hmm.
favorite, most used uh, datums or concepts in Scientology. Is to the degree you look at an area and you go, okay, what about this area is so complex? Okay, it's this thing. Okay, what about it are you not confronting? What are you not willing to look at and see what's going on in that area? And if you can confront something, what you're doing is you're able to look at it for what it is and be responsible over it.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
It's interesting because when you're first introduced to it, you automatically think that um, it's kind of an aggressive word, and you kind of just the way it's used in society misunderstood in such a way. But then when you sort of start to understand what confronting something actually is, all of a sudden it becomes such an exceptional tool to put under your belt to move ahead with things because it requires an enormous amount of honesty. It requires an enormous amount of integrity to be able to confront things, more so things that are really, really uncomfortable. Because if you don't confront that uncomfortable, then it, kind of what the reference you were talking about, Quentin, if you can't confront that uncomfortable, then you won't be able to confront it at all, which means you're going to
Mhm.
more than likely remain uncomfortable. Then, instead of like approaching something that may make you so nauseous out of fear, but at least then once you've confronted it, now you've got something to work on and something to work with. And that doesn't mean being aggressive. It could be writing a letter. It could be saying that handful of words that you've been afraid to say. It could be bills that you're avoiding. It could be, life changes that you're afraid to put into place. All of those things require a level of confront. And that reference is fantastic because depending on the level of your confront will definitely determine the level of potential outcomes. Yeah, it's a
It's
great starting point.
yeah, it's important to note that the basics, the absolute basic, the Dianetic basic, at least, is that the primary goal of a person, a being, uh, a thetan is you, the being in control of the body, is to survive. You are not your body, but you are trying to
Mhm.
survive in this physical universe and the theta universe or spiritual universe. You're trying to survive. That's the absolute basics of Dianetics and Scientology. You're trying to survive, and to the degree that you can, and this is the beginning concept, to the degree that you have the first triangle in Scientology, affinity, reality, communication, and understanding in the middle of that triangle, to the degree that you have ARC and you, affinity, reality, communication, and understanding, is to the degree that you can confront. Now, that doesn't mean you have to like something, but you have to be able to get in
Yeah.
communication with it. You have to have affinity for it. You have to have reality for it. to have understanding for it. These are the basics that are on the professional training regimens, or TR's course, that you learn this in Dianetics 55, which Artie is reading right now on his Pro TR's course, is you have to have affinity, reality, communication, and understanding. So that's part of survival. You cannot survive if you do not have ARC for anything.
Mm.
Therefore,
no ARC is dead.
right.
That's like, if you can't if there's no communication, if there's no affinity or closeness or appreciation, if there's no agreements, reality, if there's no, if you dead, it's dead.
Right. He says that the most wrong you can be is dead wrong.
That's real. Yeah.
Okay. So
But even
confronting is part of that. You
it,
can't confront if you don't have ARC for something.
but even around ARC, that's a big subject. Like that's not a small subject for people to get your head around either. Like yes, it's covered in a basic way in the communication course, and it's enough to get you moving. But then when you really start diving into ARC, it becomes something completely different.
Right. Right.
Very
Well,
different.
yeah, and in that wise, you you have to have enough ARC for how let's make this really simple. You have to have ARC and you to be able to do anything. If you don't have any affinity, reality, communication, or understanding of a tool, you can't use it. And you have to have multiple tools to get along in life. And Scientology is one way to get a bunch of tools, get affinity, reality, communication, and understanding, ARC. Then you can use those tools to better an area or areas. So in so doing, what you're doing in Scientology and Dianetics is you're getting tools, and then you're taking those tools and you're applying them in a certain way to a particular area. Some tools work better, and then they're applicable or not applicable. And to be able to confront is a primary tool for
That's so
complexity.
good.
Is a primary tool. Without confront, if you can't confront a room with books to teach you about things, you can't confront going to the library because it's so overwhelming, because all of these books, where do I start? That is a lack of confront. A lack of confront is a lack of ARC.
Yeah. And it creates this mass of complexities, because it's like so much data, so much stuff to absorb. Ellery says here, to the degree that a being cannot confront, he enters substitutes, which accumulating bring about a complexity. So then you start substituting. Well, I think I know what she's saying. I think I know what he's talking about. I think I know what this is. I think I know how to handle my finances. I think I know how to handle my body. And so you have all these substitutes of what it might not even be the truth. It's just a substitute that we throw in there to fill in the gap, in our mind. And then we create all these complexities around it. I'm sorry, it brings about a complexity. And it's like, what is this that I'm really dealing with? And so that's why we wanted to do this particular podcast. What the hell are y'all talking about with independent Scientology? So I think the first thing I wanted to give that reference, because obviously I want us to understand as we go into this that we're asking you, as you listen to these podcasts, to really up your confront, right? We're asking you to increase your level of confront, that you can face the subject of Scientology, which is a big subject. Fair enough. But we're asking you to up your confront so that you can face this subject without flinching. And one of the first things I think that is important for us to state in this podcast right here, right now, is that independent Scientology is not and is in no way affiliated with the Church of Scientology. So anybody in the comments, anybody listening, independent Scientology, the subject of the study of, is not in any way affiliated with the corporate church of Scientology, the Religious Technology Center, all the whatever things and acronyms or whatever that's existing out there, is in no way affiliated. This is something that we talk about it a lot on our podcast, and yet people still don't hear that part.
Right.
Like,
They don't get it.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And it's interesting to point out that in Dianetics and Scientology, aberration is an untruth. This equals this equals this equals this. A equals A equals A. Everything equals everything else. If the word Scientology is in it, it's bad. For example, that is
Oh God, yeah.
an aberrative concept. But the thing is the first thing you know when you see somebody make these comments is, one, they cannot differentiate, and this is a key concept in Scientology. You cannot differentiate something without having two things to compare to. Blue is not red, red is not blue. They are both colors, but the differentiation is they are a different part of the electromagnetic spectrum known as color. And you have to be able to differentiate that. That is the difference between insanity and sanity and survival. Scientology and Dianetics give you the tools to be able to figure out what these different things are using new words that were developed outside of the English language to give you a term to use as a symbol for what it is that we're trying to convey that might be completely subjective, something in your head. That's subjective. Objective would be something in the physical universe. So you have to be able to compare. If you cannot compare properly, if you cannot recognize similarities, differences, and identities, you've got nothing. That's what Scientology gives you, the ability to differentiate, categorize unbiasedly, and evaluate that information and say, this is true, this is false, this works for me, this doesn't. That's what Scientology and Dianetics does through the lens of affinity, reality, communication, and understanding. And then the other triangle, knowledge, responsibility, and control with power in the middle. You can't have KRC without ARC. These are the fundamentals.
Right. Well, and so as we understand it as a basic truth that independent Scientology is not the same as corporate Church of Scientology, we then can move on to say why we, as AOGP, as independent Scientologists, why we work with the technology, the information of Scientology in order to apply it to life and get the gains and the results and the wins that we get, right? So if we understand that there's a body of data that exists, and that body of data can help you uh, 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 know how to fly a plane, or that body of data can help you know how to find gold in a gold mine, or whatever the case may be. Like, if that body of data exists, would it be valuable, or are you even interested to look into that body of data more, to confront it without flinching, to look at it so clearly, so purely that you can fully want to understand it, right? And so we look at this body of data. We have this body of data and we absorb it, we study it, we dive into it in order to apply it, that tool. Jonathan just said it's a tool, to apply this tool to life to get better results from life, you
Right.
see.
Right.
And so one thing oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to, if you don't mind me interjecting here, I wanted to give an example. Outside of the Dianetics and Scientology, if somebody's having problems in life, they will go to alcohol, they will go to drugs, they will go to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist will give them drugs in order to handle what it is that is supposedly handle what it is that the person is having trouble with. But those things typically cause more problems than they do solutions. And those are supposedly tools as well. So it's important to note that if you're being driven by yourself or by somebody else to use tools that don't work because you don't have an answer to something, that's why you need Dianetics and Scientology in your life. And you need to be able to confront life and use those tools and confront using those tools instead of going to solutions that cause more and more problems, not posing a solution that makes you happier. Because to the degree that you're happy, the Scientology datum is to the degree that you're happy, is to the degree that you are taking care of your dynamics, the different walks of life that you have, and you're taking care of them, and you know you're doing the best that you can do, and you're happy. So some tools work outside of Dianetics and Scientology. Some tools don't. A lot don't, from our standpoint, because we wouldn't need Dianetics and Scientology if the answers were already out there, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think that starting with um study, obviously we're talking about like what are the hell are these people talking about, right? Why is study so important to Scientologists, right? To people who the whole subject is knowing how to know. That's what Scientology means, knowing how to know, or the study of knowingness. How do you know something? How do you come to know something? And so study is extremely important, being able to face that material, whatever the material is, without flinching. LRH says that competence breeds confidence. Competence breeds confidence. And so, what happens when we study? The Bible says, study to show thyself approved, or to prove to thyself that you know what you're talking about, right? And
Mhm.
so if Scientology is knowing how to know, or the study of knowingness, then we look at study as an extremely important methodology, a extremely important way of learning something so that we know what we're dealing with when we deal with the things that we study in Scientology, right? And so I believe that starting there, if you're new to this subject, if you're new to to independent Scientology, if you want to learn more about what this is and how it works in the whole bit, dive into study. Go to the college, and really dive in. Yeah. Go to the study the sub go to the college and really dive in so that you can know at least what are the basics of this thing.
Right, because
And
how do you
the
do
study
anything in life?
course,
Is you need to know how to study in order to study. Go ahead, Arthur.
That's right.
and
That's
the
what he was
study
saying.
course, but there's so much information in the study course. You know what I mean? Like there's phenomena, like things that occur to the physical body, um, as study blocks. And then as you get
Mhm.
further down, those basic things you learn in the study course are are life, but they become life skills. You can't undo it once once you've learned it. And it's really quite incredible at how much you'll actually apply to your everyday, not just say independent Scientology, but in your everyday, regardless of what you choose to study. Especially if you're somebody that works in an office, for example, the things you'll learn from the study course will open your world and open your mind to new things. And what's interesting is you'll actually start to become more excited to study because there were so many things packed in that little course. And that one's free, isn't it? The
Yep.
study course.
Yeah, the basic study course
Yeah.
is free.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's a great introduction on how the flow of Scientology, independent Scientology will work as well, because I mean it's a series of courses, it's a series of learnings to get you to a point to know. And um they're not theories. Like they're things that you can actually put to the test. And like the things you learn about just reading, and the things that happen to the physical body in certain situations, you start applying it straight away. And it's not something that you have to beat your head, beat yourself over with to understand. Like the way the courses are so designed, you know, they work in a gradient, which you learn about in that course. Like what is a gradient, and it's a great starting point. Between that and the communication course, like those two paired up will, even if you just do those two courses and then
Oh yeah.
stop there, those two courses will change everything. And I say that because I know that. I'm not saying that to get people into the course, because I highly recommend people do. But at the same time, I say that out of sheer confidence, because those two courses have opened so many doors for me that were never opened before. And really basic information, but it's information that you do not hear outside of independent Scientology,
Mhm.
which blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. You know,
Yeah,
you'll
You
learn
don't.
about ARC in the communication course. You'll learn about confronting in the communication course. In fact, pretty much most of the things we discuss are covered in those two basic courses.
yeah, and
On a basic level, to an
right.
understandable level.
Right. Confronting, somebody says, well, I hate study. I don't want to study. Okay, there's a non-confront right there.
Yep.
Something going
And,
on
and
where
and
you
to
don't
that
want to
degree,
confront it. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah,
And to that
complex.
degree, your life will be more complex.
Right.
Whatever
yeah.
whatever it is you're
But
trying to
that's
study.
also discussed. Yeah, but that's also discussed because that is a phenomena that occurs as well. You know, and
Yeah.
the study
Why that
course
is.
covers that phenomena. Yeah. You know, the know-it-all, so to speak. You know, if you think you already know something about something when you actually don't, well, you're not going to get a
Hmm.
great result.
Right.
You know, so here's some tools to know. Here's some tools to learn. Here's what happens to your body. Here's what happens to your brain when you're reading something and you don't understand a word. And so this is why word clearing is so important. This is why you get tired. This is why you don't want to do a subject. This is why, you know, you start something and then give up. Like all these things you learn are incredible tools to help you catch yourself. Well, it's just incredible.
Right. And
Really simple stuff.
it's important to note that one of the key datums is in Dianetics and Scientology is we can only help those people who want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
that has to do with with personal responsibility, and are you willing to confront and try to confront, to get to confronting, looking at things and going, this is an area I could be better at. This is an area that I have a problem at. This is an area I struggle with being honest with people. I struggle with being honest with myself. Most importantly is being honest with yourself. That is something that has to be confronted. Can I be honest with myself? And am I willing to tell somebody things that I feel uncomfortable about, to talk to an auditor and tell them things that will free you as a being? You're holding yourself back because of your unwillingness to look at something and inspect it and be honest with yourself. And uh, that Quentin leading with complexity and confronting might seem like this lofty thing, but it is the the crossroads of everything. Is
Hmm.
that you have to be willing to confront areas. You're saying, well, I'm fine. I don't, I don't have any area. Well, then why are you so unhappy?
Uh-huh.
Why why
Yep.
why are things not going the way that you want to? Why are you giving other things responsibility over you? Because you have this psychological or psychiatric label put on you that your brain doesn't function properly, or you're not getting the right chemicals in your brain and all this stuff. Is that solving the problem for you? Is it getting you
Mm.
anywhere? How Dr. Phil says, so how's that working out for you?
Mhm.
Because you can put a label on anything. If the label doesn't solve it, the label says it's this, it's unsolvable. Scientology says
And
it's this, and this is how we solve it. That's the difference between psychology, psychiatry, and independent Scientology. We have a tool for almost everything. It's just a matter of whether are you willing to take that tool, confront that tool, put it in your hand, and use it to turn that bolt, use it to turn that screw, to pull that screw out, take things apart and look inside, see how it's made, and put it back together in a different way so that it's built properly.
Can you
What were
read
you
that?
going to say?
Um, can you read it again, Quentin? The what you read out at the start?
The complexity and confronting?
Yeah.
So it says here, one moment, let me pull it up. It says here that, okay, um, so here's the basic law of complexity. The degree of complexity is proportional to the degree of non-confront. Reversing this, the degree of simplicity is proportional to the degree of confront. And the basis of aberration is non-confront. Aberration meaning insanity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So the basis of
Well,
insanity is non-confront. Go ahead, sorry.
in the tech dictionary, aberration, number one, a departure from rational thought or behavior, and from the Latin aberrare, to wander from, wander away, to wander. It means basically to make mistakes, or more specifically, to have fixed ideas which are not true.
Isn't that
So,
real for a lot of the world?
yeah,
Yeah. We
yeah,
talked about
that's
those fixed ideas last a couple of podcasts back.
Yeah.
And
well,
change.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there has to be a willingness, and a willingness starts with ARC and you, Affinity Reality Communication Understanding. You can't have any willingness in a certain direction unless you have an understanding of it. To have an understanding of it, you need to understand the basic concepts. And that's what we do is we give people the basic concepts. That's what we're trying to do here is to give some of these
Mm,
basic concepts so that you can be at a nice, slight, gentle cause over the subject. Make sure you clear up any words you don't understand. Make sure that you can see how this is by maybe using some paper clips, rubber bands, stuff like that, and doing a demo of how this could be in your life, and then going out and doing it. And then you'll say, hey, this is a tool I can use. I can start a conversation with a complete stranger by using the ARC
Well,
triangle.
and again, like even around demos, like learning what a demo kit is and how you can actually use a demo. I use like since learning how to do that, I use it all the time in all sorts of different
mhm,
situations,
Mhm.
especially if I'm with a friend and we're talking about something and I'm trying to explain something that I might be struggling using my words with. I'll be like, okay, so let's create a scenario. And sometimes with my clients as well, I'll get them to do demos to me about how they might actually be feeling, and again, you learn that stuff in the basic course, which is great. They're things you apply and use a lot. I use the demo kit.
mhm.
I've got it right here. With my
It's
little
so
demo
crazy.
kit. I
It's
love it. It's
good.
like at arm's length. I use it all the time. Um,
Yeah.
all the time.
I'll tell you, I use a demo kit, and for those of you who are listening, like go into and do this course about the basic study course, because when you talk about the demo kit, that's such a valuable it's a little thing, it's a little tool, it's like a little kit with
Incredible.
little knickknacks and bric-a-brac in there, and you can use it to represent anything. I'm gonna tell you, I use it in my relationship, and I also use it with my son. My son was failing math, he was failing algebra, and so he comes to me and he was like, Dad, I really need some help with this because this don't make no sense. Okay. And so I said, Oh, okay. I said, Well, so he got the book. And I said, What's the definition of algebra?
Mm.
And he said, I don't know. So we looked at the definition of algebra. And I said, What's the definition of mathematics? And he was like, I don't know. So we start clearing
Yeah,
these
yeah.
words, right? And immediately, just on the subject of math, he started coming up tone. Like he started getting happy about reading the book and reading the little packets. He had little packets. He started getting happy about reading his little packets and stuff. And so then he comes and we were trying to do this formula. And I said, well, let's back up. I said, so we understood what mathematics was, and we went back over the definition of it. And so I went and got a bunch of candy. I got Snickers bars, Butterfingers, Snickers bars, Butterfingers, and Twix, and I had all these candy. And I said, so I love Twix. He likes Butterfingers, and we had the Snickers bar there. And I said, so if math is a language, right? It's a language representing something in the real world. I said, I want you to tell me you love me with candy. And so he literally got the candy. He was trying to figure it out in his head. You could see him like trying to figure out, what are you talking about? I love you with candy. What are you talking about? I said, use the candy and tell me you love me. And so he did Butterfinger, Snickers bars, Twix. So Micah loved that. I said, good. You just used a mathematical expression to tell me you love me using this candy. Now let's do it on paper. And immediately, I'm telling you the truth. Immediately, he was able to boom, 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 knock out all his answers. Just using that little demo kit. I'm using that demo kit with candy, by using that candy to understand what an algebraic expression was. He was able to communicate to me, not with words, but with candy, what it was, and was able to solve his confusion, his complexity around math. You see what we're saying here? You see why this is such a valuable body of data to understand, knowing how to know something, knowing how to, the study of knowledge, study of knowingness, knowing how to know is such a valuable thing. And he was able to pass math. Well done, Micah.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this.
And just from understanding words, just from
Yeah.
understanding what you're actually doing in your life. I don't know about
Exactly.
you guys, but some words I've cleared, like as in I've understood, have changed aspects of my life because
Yes.
I was using language that I had no awareness of what I was actually saying.
Hmm.
Right. Well,
And as you go through these things, you start to think to yourself, holy crap, I actually didn't know much at all.
right. Right. We, we,
Like
we
at
had
all at all.
we had that this morning when I said, okay, we could do a podcast that's a primer for people new to independent Scientology. And both of you guys were like, well, you mean primer? I said, no, it's a different word, a primer and a
Yeah.
primer.
That's so crazy.
And you guys had to look that up because you didn't have affinity reality communication and therefore understanding that there was another word that looks like primer but is pronounced primer, that is an actual thing for that students use
So
in
now,
order. Yeah, it's a noun. It's a person, place, or thing that you use to introduce a subject to people. It's not what you put on a wall before you put paint over it.
yeah, I thought you were just trying to be fancy because you live in the nice part of town. I thought he was. It's a primer. Let me get you a. Can we do a primer?
Yeah.
But
But you see, I entered in that substitute. I literally entered in a substitute for primer.
right.
I was like, oh yeah, it's a good primer you put on the walls.
Right. Right. Because you didn't, and this isn't at your guys' expense. It's just, it is,
It's perfect.
it's an allegory to what we're talking about here is if Scientology is knowing how to know. How do you know how to know? You have to know how to learn in order to know how to know. And then from there, you can take tools. And as you learn how to use those tools, you can build on them and expand exponentially to where your awareness, your emotional tone level, your responsibility, your slash responsibility slash confront increases to where you can look at things that you wouldn't normally look at and you can confront them that are complex so that you can solve and pose problems to the problem of survival in your life, on and on and on and on and on. But you have to
That's
have
right.
you have to have a primer, you have to have a book of the basics of the concepts that
Mm-hmm.
gets you to understand and have ARC for these basic concepts so that you can move forward. If you don't
Right.
have these particular pieces of information, you're going to become antagonistic towards the subject because you have misunderstood concepts, words, or symbols. and you're going to start it to individuate from it. And that's one of
Yeah.
the biggest
Hey.
problems that people face in any subject, not just independent Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
Silly question. How do you spell primer?
Primer.
Primer.
It's how it's
Oh,
pronounced. It's
okay.
not how it's
Just
spelled.
yeah, just like primer, but it's pronounced primer. That's interesting. So I love this. So far we've talked about why being able to confront the material, confront the subject of is so important. And we've also talked about ARC, which is affinity, reality, and communication, which
Mhm.
is the components of understanding that leads to understanding of any subject, anything, anyone. Affinity, reality, and communication. Um, Jonathan earlier touched on what is a thetan, right? In Scientology, we have the term called thetan, which is basically a thinker, right? When that thinks comes from
Mm,
the Greek word
well,
theta.
yes, but it also is the term for that which not just thinks. Thinking isn't the greatest thing in the world.
Well, that's
It,
true.
thi- think
That's
thinking
true.
thinking thinkingness. If you look at where thinkingness is on the scale for a being, it's not very high. Knowingness is at the top of the scale.
That's right.
The emotional tone scale, the tone scale that we mentioned in our last podcast, these varying degrees of emotion are varying degrees of ARC and U, or a lack thereof of ARC and U. Every emotional tone level on our chart of attitudes or the emotional tone scale is a level of uh, ARC.
ARC. Hmm. That's right.
Total knowingness being at the top, mystery being at the complete bottom. That includes anger, fear, hiding, covert hostility, apathy, boredom,
Hmm.
interests, strong, mild, high, aesthetics, games, postulates, and everything in between.
That's right.
Those are varying degrees of affinity, reality, and communication. It's that
So, so
simple.
as so as a so as a Thetan, you are an immortal spiritual being
Mhm.
separate from your body, your mind, your brain, right? Which is just a part of your central nervous system. Like you are an immortal spiritual being. And so understanding this as this primer, right? This primer of this basic understanding of what it is that we talk about when we talk about these things, we come into the conversation recognizing that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And as we come into as we come into this conversation, everything that we speak about, they might be uh, um, real world experiences that we experience as beings living this life, but we're talking to you as a being who is maybe at a place where you need something to change in your life. Maybe there's a need for change, right? Maybe you're at a place where you want to achieve more or accomplish more. You realize that I'm doing pretty well, but I just want to get a better handling of problems or better be able to communicate with the people around me. Whatever wherever you are, that you're looking to express or experience a better life. We're talking to you as a spiritual being. And we have the technology that allows you as a spiritual being to do what spiritual beings do, existing, right? In a very uh successful, and you put the definition of what that means to you, the very successful way so that you get the results that you're looking for. Um there's a thing that I want to talk about too is about the reactive mind, because I know in some of our podcasts we talk about that. We talk about he just did the definition of aberration. Um, Jonathan, can you give us something on what the reactive mind?
The reactive mind is that part of every being on this planet's core makeup that basically houses
Hmm.
thoughts, feelings, and considerations of a negative component. I can't get into all of the to break it down to its OT ramifications, but it is something there that records all of the engrams, which are painful experiences, and then they are stuck there and they are used in times where there are other painful experiences and develops into a big mass of energy and pictures that push off uh, onto the being and cause them to make decisions and actions that they otherwise would not, because there is a button being held down that says, keep opening the door and let the junk out. Keep opening the door and let the junk out. Oh, there's junk there. Oh, okay. Gosh. Now, oh, what is this? This is junk. Oh, there's more junk. And it just builds up and builds up and builds up as things happen. The reactive mind is that source of negativity, the voices in the head, the indecision, the fear, the doubt, all of that stuff. That's the reactive mind, and that's what Dianetics handles, as well as Scientology.
Oh no. And so, do Scientologists, and this question was literally asked to me, that's why I'm bringing it up here. Do Scientologists believe in a devil?
No,
Okay. Go ahead.
no. That's
The reactive mind would be
that's
the closest
another
thing to,
that's
yeah,
another religion. That's another religion. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't evil in the world, but that doesn't mean
right.
that there's a devil putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. From our perspective, the reactive mind would be that 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 storehouse of evil, irrational behavior, evil intentions, you know, all those kind of stuff like that, that would cause a being to act in devilish ways, right? And so we recognize that you as a spiritual being are responsible for your actions and for your behaviors and so forth and so on. And if that's something that you wish to improve upon, or needs to be improved upon, there's ways to do that by erasing or eradicating the reactive mind so that a person can be more sane, more rational, more ethical as a being, right? Doing the right thing.
mhm,
That's and so forth. Mhm. So
right.
that answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what the reactive mind is, and that's what we're trying to handle, because when that's around and turned on, you it, you're not yourself. You're at the adverse effect of something in the past. You're not in present time.
Mhm. And so then with auditing, right? With auditing, do we go in and we do the processes as the processes are laid out, as they've been discovered? We do the processes that deal with those engrams, deal with that reactive mind, deal with those negative experience, those traumatic incidents, and reduce them and erase them so that when one no longer has his or her own reactive mind, one is then considered clear, right? One is then considered clear when they no longer have
They're
that
in
reactive mind that's throwing stuff, like you said, throwing that mess back at you, causing you to have the fears and the anxieties and the phobias and the wonky stuff that goes on, right? That once a person is cleared of that reactive mind, then they can now think more sanely, more clearly, and therefore communicate better and experience life better, and make better decisions for themselves and those around them.
right. Well, I think this is going to be a two-parter.
Yeah, we can go
And
because
more than
yeah,
two parts.
I still got about four things on my list. So yeah.
Yeah. So we'll bring it to a close for part one, and then we'll take this up again in the next podcast for part two. What the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, I love it. Great title.
So we hope you've enjoyed this and found it illuminating, and we hope we haven't gone too fast. If there's something you didn't understand, put it in the comments on our YouTube video, and we'll get to it, or something you want us to expand on in the next podcast. Hopefully, we can knock this out tomorrow or the next day. It might even be a three-parter, but we'll really try to give you all the basic components, and you sit down and listen to this and get a much better understanding of it. So,
Right.
anything else we want to say here before we close out?
Well, I just want to say that, I want people to know that there's so much good stuff that is available for those that have listened to the podcast, that continue to listen to the podcast, for those that go into College of Independent Scientology.com and become a part of the college, for those that want to, dive into this and really confront the material in a way that they can easily absorb it. I'm here as a terminal for anybody who wants to talk, as a resource. And let's see how this grows. I love it.
Yep. We've also got a bridge, half price bridge special going on. Half of our normal fee to get the entire Dianetics and Signed Independent Scientology auditing, and there's even some training in there. Half price, and we can get you in session within a couple of days and start getting you some wins, changing your life. It's an amazing opportunity, a fraction of the cost for us, and a fraction of the cost, way more of a fraction from the corporate Church of Scientology. So do contact us either on YouTube or in the college once you've registered, or on ao-gp.org, in our Fin AI in the bottom right hand corner. Send us a message there and we'll get back in touch with you. Don't forget to leave your email address, and we'll see you in part 2 of this podcast series tomorrow or the next day. So for Quentin and Arthur, namaste, and we love you. Bye-bye.
Peace.